There, amazing friends. I warmly invite you to join me on this exciting journey by subscribing to my channel, liking, commenting, and sharing my videos. Every like, comment, and share brings us closer together and fuels my passion to create more great content. Your support truly makes all the difference. Thank you for being the heart of this community. The whisper echoing in the deep well. The tormented scream of imprisoned spirits seeking a way out. On the edge of a forgotten village where the land meets the relentless grip of time and the air is heavy with untold secrets, there stands an ancient stone well. Its circular opening, rimmed with moss and crumbling mortar, is hidden deep within a grove of gnarled trees and tangled underbrush, a place that locals dare not approach after dusk. For generations, the well has been the subject of hushed legends and eerie whispers, tales of a voice, a tortured scream that rises from its depths on moonless nights, as if the souls of the damned are pleading for escape. This is the story of that cursed well and of one man's desperate journey into its darkness, a journey that would challenge the very nature of reality and sanity itself. Dr. Adrian Cole, a soft-spoken but determined paranormal investigator with a keen interest in psychological enigmas and unexplained phenomena, had long been fascinated by the lore surrounding the deep well. Drawn by accounts of inexplicable sounds and sightings, he resolved to uncover the truth behind the legends. Cole had spent years researching similar occurrences, isolated cases in abandoned buildings, haunted sites, and remote landscapes where the boundary between the living and the dead grew perilously thin. Yet nothing in his extensive study had prepared him for the intensity of the mystery that awaited him in this secluded village. It was a cold November evening when Cole arrived at the outskirts of the settlement. The village itself was a collection of dilapidated cottages and overgrown paths, its inhabitants having long since retreated into the safety of urban centers. Only a few elderly souls remained, their eyes reflecting memories of better days now swallowed by decay and silence. Local lore spoke of the well with a mixture of fear and reverence, a relic of a bygone era, rumored to have been used in unspeakable rituals and cursed by an ancient malediction. Cole's initial interviews with these villagers yielded little more than cryptic murmurs. At night, you can hear the screams, the cries, as if the walls of the well remember our sins. Their voices trembled, and even the strongest among them looked away when the subject was broached. Undeterred, Cole set up his temporary camp on a gentle rise overlooking the old stone well. The setting sun painted the sky in bruised purples and oranges, and as darkness descended, a dense, oppressive fog began to roll in from the hills. He arranged his equipment, a high-definition video camera, sensitive audio recorders, and a digital notebook, carefully around the well's perimeter. Every tool was chosen to capture any hint of the paranormal, the faintest whisper, the slightest shift in temperature, even a spectral silhouette. As the last vestiges of daylight slipped away, the world around him seemed to grow quieter, as though nature itself held its breath in anticipation of what was to come. At first, nothing happened but the normal sounds of a chilly night, the rustle of dry leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, and the soft sigh of the wind. Cole sat vigil by the well, watching the fog swirl over its ancient stones. Minutes passed in a heavy, suffocating silence. Then, just as the clock struck midnight, a sound, faint and sorrowful, began to emanate from the darkness below. It was not a roar, nor the clamor of falling debris, but a soft, almost imperceptible cry, a mournful wail that seemed to vibrate through the very stones of the well. Cole's heart quickened. He adjusted his recorder and leaned forward, straining to catch every nuance of the sound. The audio device, set on its highest sensitivity, began to register a series of low, trembling frequencies that rose and fell in a pattern resembling a desperate plea. As the eerie melody of despair grew, Cole felt an overwhelming presence, as if unseen eyes were watching him from the depths. He recalled the old stories, that the well was not merely an abandoned water source, but a gateway to a realm of suffering where the tormented souls of the past were trapped by an ancient curse. According to local legend, many centuries ago, a terrible injustice had been committed in that very spot. A massacre, a betrayal so profound that the surviving victims' cries had been sealed within the stone, doomed to echo through eternity. Now, on this fateful night, the voices seemed to rise in anguish, pleading for release from their eternal torment. With trembling resolve, Cole stood and slowly approached the well. Each step felt as though he was crossing a threshold between the living world and something far more sinister. The heavy wooden door at the top of the well, once used to cover its dark mouth, hung slightly ajar, its hinges creaking in protest with every subtle shift of the cold wind. He hesitated, his mind a tumult of scientific curiosity and instinctive fear. Then, summoning his courage, he pushed the door open wider and peered into the yawning darkness below. The interior of the well was a gaping maw, its walls slick with centuries of damp and decay. The beam of his flashlight cut a narrow path through the inky black, revealing rough-hewn stones etched with indecipherable symbols. The further he looked, the more he felt that something was alive in that void, a presence that reached out with spectral fingers, longing to be freed. In that moment, the quiet despair of the well transformed into an almost tangible sorrow, a grief that seeped into his bones. He could almost feel the collective weight of 1,000 forgotten tragedies pressing in on him, urging him to listen to the anguished whispers that had haunted the night. As the minutes stretched into an hour, the recording equipment captured not only the soft, tormented cry, but also sporadic, almost human-like voices layered beneath it. In one chilling instance, a fragmented phrase emerged, a plea that seemed to echo, "Help us. Free us." The voice was weak, as if carried on a dying breeze, yet it resonated with such undeniable despair that Cole felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes. He recorded every moment, his hands shaking as he documented what he now believed was the imprint of a deep, ancient sorrow. The sound was interspersed with a series of disjointed, rhythmic pulses, almost like the beating of a heart long silenced, further deepening the mystery of the well. Over the following days, Cole remained at the site, driven by an obsession to uncover the truth behind the haunting sound. He spent hours every night listening to the recordings, transcribing every faint syllable and comparing them with ancient texts and local folklore. The more he analyzed, the more it seemed that the well was indeed a repository of memories, a prison for souls who had suffered unspeakable injustices. He interviewed the remaining villagers, many of whom recalled strange occurrences on stormy nights, when the well's darkness seemed to pulse with life and the air carried a stifling sorrow. One elderly woman, her face lined with grief and resignation, recounted how her grandmother had once whispered that the well was cursed by the wrath of a wronged spirit, a spirit that would one day claim the living if its torment was not acknowledged. Compelled by these testimonies, Cole began to delve deeper into the history of the well. In the local archives, buried under dust and neglect, he discovered faded records dating back to the 16th century. According to these brittle manuscripts, the land on which the well stood had once belonged to a wealthy noble family that had ruled the region with an iron fist. A bitter feud had erupted when a trusted servant, wronged by the family's cruelty, had been brutally executed and thrown into the well as punishment, a final, harrowing act intended to silence him forever. But as the legend went, on the night of his death, the servant's anguished cry had echoed from the depths, cursing the family for eternity. Over the years, as the noble line died out and the estate crumbled, the well remained, a grim monument to a past stained by blood and sorrow. This revelation sent a shiver through Cole's spine. It was as if he had uncovered a missing piece of the puzzle, a dark secret that explained the persistent, mournful voices and the inexplicable energy that seemed to cling to the well's ancient stones. Determined to break the cycle of despair and perhaps offer a measure of redemption to the tormented souls, he resolved to perform a ritual of remembrance. Drawing on both academic research and local mysticism, Cole devised a plan to honor the lost voices and, in doing so, perhaps set them free from their eternal imprisonment. On a moonless night, when the sky was an impenetrable canvas of darkness and the air vibrated with the silent tension of anticipation, Cole returned to the well. He brought with him a collection of items gathered from his research, a weathered journal detailing the well's gruesome history, a small vial of water taken from the nearby stream, believed to have been blessed by a long-forgotten priest, and a single white candle. He arranged these objects carefully on a flat stone near the well's entrance, as if creating a makeshift altar. With his recorder running, he began to read aloud the tragic history he had uncovered, his voice steady despite the turmoil within. As the story of the wronged servant and his final desperate cry filled the still air, a faint, almost imperceptible change seemed to take place. The oppressive gloom around the well softened slightly, and for a brief moment, the tortured wail that had haunted the previous nights was replaced by a quiet, sorrowful murmur, a sound that seemed to carry the promise of release. In that charged silence, as the candle flickered and cast dancing shadows on the ancient stones, Cole felt an overwhelming presence. It was as if the very air shimmered with the energy of countless souls reaching out through the veil of time. The recorder picked up a series of soft, overlapping voices, a chorus of lamentations that swelled and then faded into a fragile quiet. For a few long, timeless minutes, the well became a conduit for the past, the sound of sorrow mingling with the crackle of the candle's flame. In that moment, Cole experienced an epiphany. The curse was not a malevolent force to be vanquished by anger or fear, but a deep, unhealed wound of history that demanded acknowledgement and compassion. He spoke softly into the night. "We remember you. We honor your pain." And though the voices did not answer with words, the silence that followed felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted, if only in part. In the days after the ritual, the haunting cries from the well diminished. The nightly recordings, once filled with agonized wails, now carried only the soft murmur of the wind and the distant call of a night bird. The villagers, too, noted a subtle change, a less oppressive air around the old well, a slight easing of the long-held sorrow that had plagued their memories. Though the deep secret of the well's curse was not entirely undone, there was a glimmer of hope that perhaps the voices of the past could finally be put to rest. Dr. Adrian Cole documented his entire journey in a detailed report, complete with audio recordings, photographs, and personal reflections. His account spread through academic circles and paranormal forums alike, sparking debates among historians, spiritualists, and skeptics. Some argued that the changes in the well's activity were a natural consequence of time and human intervention, while others believed that Cole's ritual had tapped into an ancient, collective need for remembrance, a way to heal the scars of history by giving voice to those long silenced. For many, the idea that the tormented spirits might find solace in being remembered offered a bittersweet comfort, a reminder that even the darkest tragedies need not be forgotten, but can instead pave the way for healing and understanding. In subsequent years, the legend of the deep well grew. New visitors, driven by curiosity and a desire to encounter the paranormal, began to venture to the site. Some reported hearing a faint whisper on the wind, a lingering, gentle echo that spoke of loss and forgiveness. Others found that, on certain nights, the oppressive feeling that once weighed heavily on the area had been replaced by a strange calm, as if the well had released a portion of its ancient sorrow. Researchers continued to monitor the site, using advanced audio equipment and thermal imaging to capture any sign of the spectral phenomena. Although the most dramatic, tormented screams had faded, the subtle presence of the past remained palpable, a silent reminder of the tragedy that had unfolded there centuries ago. For me, the experience of unraveling the secret of the deep well was both transformative and deeply unsettling. It forced me to confront the notion that the past is never truly gone. It lingers, woven into the very fabric of our existence. The tortured cries, the whispering voices, and the cold, unyielding stone all serve as a testament to a history marked by unspeakable sorrow, one that continues to haunt the present. As I sit here now, far from that lonely well, yet forever changed by its echoes, I can still hear the faint murmur of voices carried on the wind, a quiet dirge that reminds us of the enduring power of remembrance. So, as you listen to this tale, allow your mind to wander back to that forsaken place on the outskirts of a forgotten village. Picture the ancient well, its circular opening dark and mysterious, surrounded by gnarled trees and the soft, eerie glow of twilight. Imagine the sound of a lone, sorrowful violin drifting through the night air, merging with the rustle of leaves and the distant murmur of lost souls. In that moment, you might sense that the past is not a distant memory, but a living presence, a force that calls out to be acknowledged, that seeks release from its eternal prison of stone and silence. The secret of the deep well is a poignant reminder that every tragedy, every injustice leaves an indelible mark on the world, a mark that, if left unrecognized, can echo through time in a cacophony of despair. But it also teaches us that healing begins when we confront these dark chapters of our history with compassion and courage. By remembering the voices of the past and offering them the solace of recognition, perhaps we can begin to mend the fractures in our collective soul. In the end, the whisper echoing in the deep well, the tormented scream of imprisoned spirits seeking a way out, is not merely a ghost story, but an invitation, a call to explore the hidden depths of our own history, to listen to the silent dirges that echo through abandoned places, and to understand that the quest for truth and healing is a journey that transcends time. For in every whispered scream and every trembling note of an ancient melody, there lies the hope that we can learn from the past, honor its pain, and forge a future where even the most tormented spirits may finally find their way to peace. As you settle in to listen, imagine yourself standing at the edge of that ancient well, the cool night air brushing against your skin, and the murmur of forgotten souls rising softly from the depths below. Let the story remind you that history is not confined to dusty books or crumbling ruins. It lives in every whisper of the wind, in every echo of sorrow, and in the enduring hope that even in the darkest places, there is a path to redemption waiting to be discovered.